Most athletes don't fail handstand walking because they aren't good enough. They fail because they're not confident at kicking up, they can't shift their weight, they can't bail out safely, and they don't have enough stability through their shoulders. So if you ever feel like you freeze mid kick up, or you topple out to the side, or you just feel like you're guessing with how to actually take steps, this video is going to change that. I'm breaking down the exact stages that I use with my athletes to help coach their first handstand walk. We're going to cover how to stack your hips safely, the drills that you need to be doing, and how you're going to take your first confident handstand walking steps across the floor. This isn't just about building confidence, this is about building a handstand walk that you can rely on in workouts in your gym. So let's get into it. Handstand Walking 101, a beginner's guide. Now, the first thing that we are going to talk about, and if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll be well aware that this comes first, is related strength to the skill. So when we're talking about handstand skills, we need to be thinking about overhead strength, shoulder stability, and core. And I'm going to run you through the more important exercises that I do with my athletes now, so that you can go away and use these in your own time. Now, if you want to be able to handstand walk, there's a big debate whether you need to be able to handstand hold comfortably in an open space. Personally, I don't think it is a requirement to do that, but there are handstand related things that you have to be able to do first. And the most important one that all of my athletes need to tick off before they're allowed to start any of the drills is to be able to hold a handstand against a wall for 60 seconds, and whilst doing it, be pushed up through their shoulders like this, which is actually so much harder to do than you think. Over the 60 seconds, you'll start to sink and you have to be able to push back up and be able to hold in this extended position for the full minute. When I first tried it, I think I got about 20 seconds, and it took me a couple of weeks to build up the full minute, and then I started with my drills. So it's a little bit hard to see it in this video, but this is what it's going to look like. I am extending through my shoulders. It's just a little bit tricky to see. Once you've been able to tick off this and you've got your 60 seconds and we're ready to start, the next thing I'll be looking at is a handstand shrug. So this is moving in and out of that extended position through the shoulders, where we push up and sink down. And a lot of the strength exercises I do is going to utilize this movement, because when you're doing your handstand walk, you want to be pushing up through your shoulders and walking in this extended position, not walking in a sunk position. So the capacity for you to be able to hold your weight and be able to move between extended and sunk is really important. Last one on the handstand strength prerequisites is to be able to hold an L stand. And this is going to feed into handstand stacking, which is going to come up in a couple of minutes. Let me pause these, they're a bit distracting. Here we go. So with this drill, pop your leg against the wall, turn around and pop your hands on the floor. My flexibility wasn't quite good enough for me to be able to get my hands in the correct spot initially, so you'll notice I tried, but then I had to move them forward a little bit and then shuffle them back. What we're looking for is a stacked position where your arms are over your wrists, your hips are over that line, and your top leg is over that line. So everything from the side should be in a completely straight stacked line. And then this supporting leg is at 90 degrees and is straight. So get used to this position. When you're upside down, you're probably going to be on a diagonal line first, and it actually feels a bit trippy to have your hands directly underneath, but you need to get used to feeling how stacking feels. Alrighty. Next up, core strength is going to be a huge one for handstand walking. The ability to be able to hold yourself inverted and be in a solid enough position to be able to walk requires so much core control. And with all gymnastics, but especially with handstand walking and bar muscle ups, being able to be connected from the tips of your fingers to the tips of your toes is really important. So these 3 drills are all looking at connectivity between your entire body and seeing that you can hold your positions throughout your entire length. So hollow rocks are the first one. You should move all as one. So nice tight position there. Prone hold. Please do not attempt this if you have sweaty hands. I've done it before and face planted. You want to start off in a prone on the floor, take one hand up, the second hand up, and you want to actively push into the wall with your hands, push down into the floor with your feet, tuck your hips under so that your tailbone is underneath, your bottom of your rib and the top of your hip are connected, and that your shoulders are pushing down and into the wall. So that is a nice tight position we're looking for here. And then finally, seal walks. Some athletes won't be able to do this. It depends on the setup at your gym. You need some kind of slippy surface, so turf works really well. And then these little discs, a lot of gyms do have them where you pop your feet on. If not, you can do this on like a slick wooden floor if you've got a towel or a t-shirt. But again, holding that strong prone position, hips tucked under, everything in a nice straight line, and then walking through your entire arm. You don't want your elbows to bend in this. It all comes from the shoulder. Next, strength. So a lot of strength work in here. Shoulder stability is a huge one for handstand walking. Like I said before, the ability for you to extend and push up through your scapula and retract it is very important. So just to kind of get that feel in your body, this is a nice easy one. You can stack a plate on top of your hands with a flat hand as if you were doing a handstand walk on the floor. And then you want to just practice pushing up into the plate and down. This one doesn't so much build strength, but it more just builds awareness in your body of how you do this position. Sometimes in the handstand shrug, it can be hard to learn it. So if you're struggling there, this is a great way to start. Next up, similar to the plate press, but this time you're going to hold the kettlebells overhead. So we're not going to shrug them on this one. And you're trying to simulate a strong handstand position. So my hips are tucked under, my core is tight, my ribs are down, I'm pushing up through my shoulders, and I'm in this slightly rounded dish position that we would be if we were holding a handstand. And then finally, there is lots of options here with building shoulder and pressing strength. I'm showing a banded strict press, but you could do Z presses, normal strict presses. There's so many different shoulder variations you can do. I like this one because it's a power movement and we're pressing through the bands. This makes it a little bit different to your standard strict press. So there we go. That is the banded work. And with all of these strength drills, my normal prescription here is that if you're learning a movement for the first time, you want to spend 50% of your training week on this skill doing strength and 50% of your week doing skills. So if you're doing one session a week on handstand walking, it'd be split first half strength, second half skills. If you were doing 2 sessions a week on handstand walking, you could do 1 strength and 1 skill, and that would work well as well. Okay, handstand stacking. I mentioned this before, and understanding how to stack in a handstand is so important because when you first learn, trying to kick up to the correct position and be in a state where you can actually walk is really difficult because half the time you won't kick up hard enough because potentially a bit of fear in there and you just end up keep falling down the same way. And then half the time you kick up with too much oomph and you go straight over the top. So whilst I don't think you need to be able to hold a handstand for an extended period in a space, you do need to be able to kick up into a stacked handstand and be able to hold it momentarily before you start walking. Now, the way I was taught this from my gymnastics coach was that your hands go down first, your hips go above your hands second, then you actively place and put the first leg above as well. So you're in that stacked position and the second leg lifts up second. So it's actually a slower movement than you think to get your second and trailing leg up. It's all about getting your initial line set. So hands, hips, first foot, and then you actively bring the second foot to the first foot. Often athletes will just kick up without too much thought, and that's where everything goes crazy. So there's ways that you can build this up. To start with, we're just doing a wall supported tuck up. Now, the reason we use the wall is because if you get your hands right next to the wall, your hips, when they touch the wall, will be in the stacked position. And you're just getting used to that feeling of what does it feel like for my hips to be directly above my shoulders to be directly above my hands. Because it often feels like you're going over. So this is the position we're looking for. Also, it's quite nice doing a tuck up because it teaches you how to use your core. Clearly found myself hilarious in this video, so let's watch again. So you're using a bit of momentum from the jump, but you're also actively curling up through your stomach. Once you're happy here, we can do this in an open space. And this is a pretty safe drill to do. So if you're nervous about handstands, this is a nice one just to kind of get the feel of hands go down, hips go above hands. Then once we've got the hang of this, we're going to do this full handstand stack against a wall. So it goes hands, and with hands will be shoulders, hips, leg 1, leg 2. The hands, shoulders, hips, leg 1, leg 2. Alrighty. Very, very important, handstand stacking. It's something that a lot of coaches miss, especially if they haven't come from a gymnastics background. Okie dokie. So let's assume we're actively doing all of the strength work. You understand how to stack. And now we want to start working on drills so that you can take steps within your handstand. With everything, I've got stages to build it up. So if this is your first time ever trying it, then don't worry, I've got progressions for here. The ultimate aim for our first set of drills is to get a plate step up. But that can be quite daunting. So let's go back to the start and think, how would we build this skill? So initially, we're kicking up to our strong handstand against the wall. So it's very important that you can do that confidently. And initially, we're just going to focus on a weight shift. So transferring your weight from one hand to the other, if you can get a tiny bit of air time just underneath the palm of your foot, so you can just leave your fingers connected and just try and get the palms off, this is a great first step. And if it takes you 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get to this stage, it's so fine. This can be one of the hardest things to learn, is to transfer weight from one hand to the other. Once you feel like you've got that, we're going to go for a hand lift. So this is the next step. If you're really brave, you can try and touch your shoulder, but you don't need to. We're just trying to get a little bit of air time off the floor and be confident with how it feels when you rock your body from side to side. With all of these drills as well, it's completely fine for your legs to be a little bit wider. When you're first learning them, the wider your legs are, the easier it is. So you can start with them just outside of shoulder width, just to make things more simple for yourself. And then we can gradually bring them in so that they sit just above hip width, but they never actually need to be together. Alrighty, and then final progression, which is what we're aiming for, is plate step-ups. I normally get my athletes to start on a 5 kilo plate, then build to a 10, and eventually we're trying to get you to step up onto a 20 kilo. And once you can do 10 step-ups on a 20 kilo plate, this drill is aced out, so well done. Next progression from here. This one is probably, it's the second hardest drill. It's the one athletes struggle with a lot, but it is so, so good. And once you've understood and your body's got into itself how you do this drill, handstand walking in a space is so much easier. Because often what happens is athletes get used to being able to step up against a wall when their body's completely supported, and then they go into an open space and it feels totally different. However, this drill where we use a band to support the legs is a happy medium between the two, because it's a very unstable position to be in, but you're still supported. So it's kind of a halfway step between the wall and an open space. Now, initially, all you're going to try and do is hold a handstand against the band. And again, this might take a couple of weeks to get it into your body, and that's totally fine. You want to set a thick band or a couple of thick bands around quite high on the rig so that it will be about calf height when you kick up. You need to be able to put your hands directly underneath the bands and then practice your handstand stacking. So hands, shoulders, hip, leg 1, leg 2. And if we can hold here 10, 20, 30 seconds and be stable, then that is perfect, because this band's going to move you around a little bit. The first few times you're just going to ping straight back off it and descend at where you started, but eventually you'll get used to having to hold yourself. Once you're good at the static hold, then we're going to start the walking. And as soon as you've got this drill down pat, again, it might take a couple of weeks and that's totally fine. You are completely ready to start trying walking in an open space. So let's have a look at what this looks like. You'll see when I kick up, I hit the bands pretty hard. If you do that in your first couple of attempts, you'll just come back down the same way. But because I've done it a lot of times, I know how to control it and how to move with myself. So that's what we're looking for, the ability to react to the band and to keep yourself inverted. Okay, so once we're here, we're in a really good position, really, really good position. There's a couple of stages before we do a full handstand walk in an open space. At this point, athletes tend to skip these stages and just be like, I'll just try it. And look, you can, but the whole purpose of doing this progressive and steady build is so that when you get to handstand walking in an open space, you can do it. So these final stages are still really important for your progressions. First one we're going to do is walking towards a wall. Now, initially, you'll start off very close to the wall and you'll aim to take 1 to 2 steps until you feel your feet touch, and progressively you'll move backwards a little bit. The temptation here is to scorpion your legs over the top and try and hit the wall early and be in a banana. That is what you want to try and avoid completely. So still focus on your handstand stacking. Your head's not going to hit the wall. Your feet will get there first and you're not going to hurt yourself. Just try and trust me on that one. So this is what it will look like. So 1 step, 2 step. There you go. My feet touched. I kick down. I move a little bit further away. Back up. I do maybe 4 steps this time. Feet touch, come down. So it's a nice controlled way to do a small distance. This next drill, when I said the banded handstand was the second hardest drill I teach, this is probably the hardest. Athletes, again, tend to get a little bit stuck here, but once they've cracked this, then you're good to go. For the walk away, I cartwheel up onto the wall because I find it easier, but you can totally walk up. That's completely fine. You want to get your hands in really close to the wall. You want to take one foot off, get the other foot connected, and as soon as you feel like your balance is going over the top, squeeze your legs as hard as you can so they don't move any further over, and begin to take little steps through your hands. And when you're doing these little steps, you want to use your hand as if you use your foot. So you're going from heel to palm, and you can actually grip the floor on each step with your fingertips. So you can kind of go along the floor a bit like this. Now, what normally happens here is athletes' arms aren't close enough to the wall to start with. So when they take one leg over and they try and take the other leg, they just hit back against the wall. Your hands need to be right against the wall to initiate this. The second problem is that athletes feel their body weight going over, and they either keep it going and their legs go over too far, or they freak out and go back to the wall. So the important thing here is squeezing really, really tight through your legs. Squeeze them together and try and make your body tall, and that will really help. Once you've got this one nailed, this puts you in the perfect position for your handstand walk. So you should learn what it feels like, and then you are ready to start in an open space. Now, it's again a little bit hard to see, but I hit my handstand and I stall for a second before I start walking. Also look at my second leg, it trails. So the first leg hits the position, hit, second leg trails up, then they go over together. So first leg kick, second leg's up, then we go over together. Athletes who start walking before their second leg has got up just go back down the same way. So it really needs to be stack, second leg, then you go. Alrighty, some of you who are watching this may have been on your handstand walking journey for a little while, and it is a frustrating skill. It can take a long time to gain. So I just want to give you a little bit of motivation from some of my lovely athletes who went from not being able to kick up to a handstand or do any type of handstand walking to doing successful steps. And all of these athletes on the screen, and also Nolan here on the second screen, every single one of them has followed the exact sequence of steps that I've just ran you through. None of them skipped a stage before they were ready. All of them were actively working on the handstand strength alongside the skills. So if you just be methodical with what you're doing, you will get there, trust me. Alrighty, I hope you found this useful. This was my handstand walking tutorial. I also have a toaster bar and a bar muscle up one already filmed. So if either of those skills are useful for you, you can go and watch those tutorials as well. And if you want to chat with me, my handle on Instagram is coach_Briscoe. So feel free to pop up and send me a message and I will respond in due course.